Who's the
Oh,
little
that's
guy on your
amazing.
lap?
This is Schmitty, Schmidt
Yeah,
Bells.
Schmitty.
We rehomed her when she was 2, and she's 6 now, and she's so funny, man.
No
Yeah,
way. How's she
yeah. She
going?
looks
How
like,
did she go with the rehousing? It's can be an issue with dogs once they've spent a bit of time in the clink.
mate. To be honest, it was just the slightest growth each day of trust. And once she learned to trust, which took years, she really came out of a shell. And I still think we're getting to know her. And we've had her for 4 years, but she's an absolute legend, mate.
Oh, that's classic, man. Man, I'm so
Yeah.
stoked to have you on the program. Yeah, you're a guest. I've been trying to get for ages. I mean, like not hassling you, but just a guy I've wanted to get on for ages. Just because, mate, you're a fucking battler done good. Like you've had a hard graft start to life, and you've cracked the code like almost no one I can think of. I saw you're blowing up in Russia recently with your photography. Mate, how surreal has this journey been in terms of some of the accolades that you've received?
Definitely surreal, man. Definitely surreal. I feel like, I don't know, man. You know what it's like kind of growing up in government housing and not seeing a lot of roads forward. So it's definitely surreal. I have to disconnect from it actually, because yeah, it's just easier to process if I just compartmentalize the art and the work and that stuff that's happened with that to like my normal life. So yeah, it's a wild ride, life. It's a wild ride. You think it's one way, and it is for ages, and then it's not. It's something different, and then it's something different again. So
Crazy, man. Yeah, I mean, I didn't grow up in public housing, but I had a lot of friends that did, and we were renting, so in a slightly different scenario. But I can definitely relate to. I mean, we were terrified of the houses because it was a place where you grew up surrounded by victims of circumstance, a lot of criminals, a lot of people who are on their way to prison and addiction and mental health issues. What was your experience of the houses in Bulli, right?
how's this? Like we were on a list, and New South Wales is a pretty big place to be on the Department of Housing, waiting list, and out of all the possible places and like complexes and like we ended up at Bulli overlooking Sandon Point, which now like you can't get a house for under 5 million there. And I could see like McCall is Thirroul, Ostermere, Coaldale, like all the way to Bundina National Park from my bedroom window that I shared with my brother. But we're just Groms and didn't really realize at the time just how lucky we were. But of course, looking back, it's really easy to see because we could have been, you know, way west, somewhere non-coastal, and we're in a fortunate circumstance, mum being a single mum and having 3 kids, that we needed, a house, not a unit. So anyway, circumstance put that in our lap, and it is something I'll always be grateful for, mate.
Mate,
Yeah.
it's so classic. And yeah, those waiting lists are precisely why we never ended up in public housing, because I think people don't understand that you join the waiting list, there's waits of, 5 to 7 years, and you don't get to choose where you go. And generally, the higher concentrations of housing commissions are, like you said, out west, Campbelltown, Mount Druitt, up around Lake Macquarie, like west of Newey. But there were, especially in those days, like select pockets of public housing on the coast. Yeah, that Wollongong area, or like, the Cold Coast area, Maroubra, Merriweather, Bondi had a little bit, but yeah, it wasn't easy to get into one. And I guess it's interesting too to note that, like, if you do grow up in public housing on the coast, your chances of not falling into those traps of addiction, crime, dysfunction, they surely are reduced. Like you're more likely to end up in the shit if you're a poor person from a single parent home that is also housed far and away from opportunity. Like I look at those people out in, like, they've now sold off all the public housing in the nice areas and rebuilt it in bumfuck, and I can't see that being a positive for social cohesion.
I dread to think where I'd be if we didn't have the ocean at our doorstep, mate. I dread to think, because that was my outlet. That was my place. Like, what do you do when you're bored? You hang around with your mates and go surfing. Like, whatever mischief you get up to, the beach is the backdrop to all of that. So, yeah, that's where all of my life lessons were pretty much learnt, was in the ocean. Just, yeah, like respect and like just going with the flow and patience and all that stuff that ocean taught me in absence of growing up without my dad. So, yeah, I'm real stoked to have had that as a constant backdrop to my life.
So magic, man. And obviously you're surrounded by some world-class slabs in that part of the world. There's a right very close to there that's, stacks up against the best slabs in the world. In those days, though, heavily localized, like especially for bodyboarders, as far as I understand it. Although if you're from the area, maybe it was different. But talk to us about, just your introduction to bodyboarding and just the kinds of waves that you had access to growing up there.
Yeah, the Illawarra or Wollongong or the Cold Coast, or however you want to refer to it, it's got so many different options. There's wedges and points and reefs and bommies and slabs and everything you could want. And growing up in Bulli, I had Sand and Point on my doorstep, which is the same as the other place you were talking about, is heavily localized. And being a bodyboarder as well, just being at the very lowest of the totem pole, it was, yeah, kind of, I don't want to say school of hard knocks or anything, but it was, you definitely kind of just, a maggot, a lid riding kind of maggot. But you could get the crazy ones on the big east or northeast days where it wasn't so friendly for surfing, but it was like turning inside out. And yeah, so that was my wave that I guess I learnt to ride a bodyboard on, boogie board, whatever. And the other slabs around, yeah, like I remember being in like year 10 and ringing mates to come and surf it. And oh, so wild, so wild. There's a point and then there's a K out off the point. So you're kind of in the middle of the ocean. It's like a half an hour paddle or whatever. And yeah, and cars were just kind of set on fire if they didn't know who they were. And I remember having to, like, one of my mates, he kind of was a regulator kind of type figure out there, and then he kind of turned, due to his own mental health issues at the time, but kind of turned on everyone and isolated himself. And he would patrol the area, kind of looking for something to start or something. And yeah, it was a real weird relationship with that slab, actually, because I don't know, you can kind of see it from your house, but it felt kind of off limits. And it was just, even getting there on a pushy or whatever is a big ordeal. And you always felt like you'd done something real special when you come home from a surf from there. It's like, oh man, I've surfed that place, I'm so stoked, or whatever. But now, yeah, it's on Surfline and
Yeah.
everyone goes there and all that stuff. So
It's fucking blown to smithereens. It's as packed as any wave I know. Like some of the drone clips I've seen out there blows me away how busy it is. Because growing up in Sydney, like, you knew about that wave, but it had such a heavy mythology around it, and you knew it was pretty well off limits. And also kind of didn't realize how good it was, to be honest. Like,
yeah,
thought it was like a lot less attainable for a stand-up surfer than it is. But looking at, I guess that's where surfing was at that point too, in the early noughties when I was a teenager. Surfing had not yet really broached the slab realm like it was beginning to, like, and
yeah,
those guys
sure.
like Dylan Longbottom and Mick Lowe and stuff were yeah, they had an iconic section at that wave. But man, yeah, I can't believe, like, I just would love to have seen what it was like in the bad old days before fucking camera phones and social
Oh,
media.
it used to be like a sewage treatment works too. So the shit would just spew out and you could smell it. Like, it was wild. It was just feels like a different life or something.
It really does.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And I can't ever complain about the crowds. I don't really shoot it anymore because it's kind of not my focus, shooting like surfers riding waves as much. But I do surf it, like, and I can't ever get angry at the crowds because I'm part of the reason why there's people there. Like my first, half a dozen cover shots were from that place of my mates just standing in these huge barrels. So I'm sure that I accelerated the progress of it. But if I didn't, someone else would have. And yeah, that's just the way life goes. Some things
Mm,
were better before, and some things are better now, and that's how it is.
yeah, and I mean, at the end of the day, it's one of those joints that kind of localizes itself to a certain degree. When if it's big, like you can go out there and someone's going to let you go a set. Like most slabs are like
Yeah,
that.
fully. Yeah, fully.
And I mean, fuck. Speaking of going sets, you went one. I mean, you've hacked many a set out there, but you went one not that long ago that fully like fucked you.
Yeah, fully fucked me. Yeah, that's exactly what happened.
What happened
Just
there?
like,
That's a
oh,
heavy injury.
oh, you know what? Like I've replayed it all and tried to just imagine if one or two things weren't what they were, it wouldn't have happened, or it would have been 100 times worse. But it's like a real big period, and it hates a big period because it just folds. Like it doesn't get taller; it just gets thicker, and you can't get into them as easy. And even on a bodyboard, it's real hard to get into them. And I think it was like a 17-second period, which is pretty rare for the east coast of Oz. And I was in the spot and seen like a nugget coming and started to paddle, just kind of to make my intentions known to the pack that were on the bubble. And I accidentally hit someone in the face with my hand. And I just went, shit. Like I went to stop and apologize. And then I was just like, oh, I've got to go. Like I can't turn one wave back because I might not get another chance for an hour or two. And so that split second that I went to apologize, instead of being at the bottom of the wave, I was then at the top, and then a free fell, bounced, did a cartwheel in this tube, and got sucked over with the lip and driven chest first into the reef. And yeah, gosh, it was the. Oh, if it was my head, I'd be probably dead. If it was my back, I would be, yeah, like some kind of spinal injury, for sure. And yeah, broke four ribs, and the impact squeezed my chest so hard that it popped my lung like a balloon. And yeah, I came up, seen my mate Jackson Forbes on the ski on the shoulder looking, and the fact that he's seen me, like I knew that I was going to be okay, but I got like three more on the head, and I was just listening to this noise just going, "Ugh," and I was like trying to find out what it was, and it was me. It was my own just involuntary, like, I don't know, primal scream of some kind. And yeah, long rehab to a week in hospital. Um, After that, like just moving or breathing or sneezing or coughing was just absolutely fucked. And yeah, my wife said that I was just crying, whimpering all night in my sleep. And probably took a year, like a proper, 9 months to a year to be fully healed and doing the stuff again.
Man, that's wild. It seems to be the most common injury when it comes to these kinds of waves. I can't tell you how many people I've heard get done up with broken ribs in the last 12 months. It's insane. Fuck, and it's a dangerous injury when you consider that, lungs can puncture if the ribs go internally. And once the lung punctures, you kind of have a time limit set on getting to help and, getting some help breathing, depending on how bad it is. Man, that's a heavy story. Like growing up in the bodyboarding world, talk to us about some of the icons or mentors or legends that you looked up to or even got mentored by.
Oh, there's so many good. It's weird. Bodyboarding is not a huge community, but the people in it, they're kind of like thought leaders or just these exceptionally creative people. And it's such a high concentration in such a small amount of people. And I've never been able to kind of put my finger on why. But yeah, like just in my local world, there were so many good bodyboarders who ended up being like amazing creatives, like David Fox, Big Dav, Catesy, Todd Barnes. Um, I can't even think of the amount of people, but just even those three guys there, they are making the best surf movies right now. And Barnsey works for Stab and does all of those how surfers get paid things. And Dav and Harry Bryant just released a new clip and a new like featured film. And yeah, and that's just the tiny bit that was a tiny bit of the industry that I was in constant contact with. But when the visiting pros would come, it'd be guys like, I don't know if you know Jeff Hubbard, and who's now like one of my really good mates, and his brother Dave, the Hubbard brothers. They're like, multiple world champions and pipe champions and Shark Island champions, and
Hawaiian guys, right?
yeah, from Kauai.
Kauai.
Absolute legends.
No way. Wow.
Yeah.
I did not
That
know
place
that.
is amazing. Yeah.
Holy shit. That would be boog heaven on the right days. Fuck.
It really is. Yeah. It's beautiful. Yeah, I don't know. Bodyboarding, I don't know. It's a real cool like way to ride the right kind of waves. You're just on this like mat that moves with the wave, and you can just get these weird sensations that I'm not skilled enough to ever feel on a surfboard. Like if I get a barrel on a surfboard, all I'm thinking about is trying to get out of the barrel. But on a bodyboard, you can kind of just adjust your knees or bend your elbow and just, I don't know, mold into the shape of the wave, which is such a good feeling, eh?
Man, it's a miraculous sport. Like I was watching a clip of Ryan Hardy at North Point a while ago, and just watching this guy, this lanky dude on this thin layer of foam going light speed, like dead straight on a speed line, just traveling through like an 8-foot freight train cone. And I'm like, for some reason, maybe it was the microdose or something, but I was like, this is surreal. Like what a bizarre thing to come up with. Like he's separated from the ocean by like 2 inches of foam. And it's this little, like, it's half the size of his body. And he's just traveling through these giant wormholes. Oh man, it's a strange thing. And it's a shame that like there's been this division between surfing and bodyboarding, because in a more practical, less egoic society, you would think that guys would just pick up whatever piece of equipment best suited the conditions. And I often think like how wacky it is surfing slabs on sticks, even though I do it all the time, because at the end of the day, like it's just so much more difficult. You're riding this piece of glass that can shatter and fucking injure you so badly, which has happened to me several times. And
For sure.
Yeah, it's not that practical. And for years, surfers weren't even bothering with those kinds of waves because it wasn't practical. And now they've figured out a line in, and board designs kind of reached a place where, we can kind of scoop in under the ledge. I say we, I'm not claiming to be able to do that very well, but like, yeah, so it's kind of caught up to bodyboarding in a sense. But yeah, what you say about the creative streak in bodyboarding is interesting too, because yeah, there's a lot of guys where I grew up who were, pro bodyboarders. I guess you could call them that. Like they probably weren't drawing a good wage out of it, but they're in Tension and those kind of films. And what I noticed about those guys, they were so distinct from the stick kind of culture, in that like these guys were getting the fucking craziest cones. It was unbelievable.
Craziest.
For the early noughties, it was so mind-blowing. But they had none of the humility. They had all of the humility, none of the kind of ego. And it was like they were like, yeah, very like eloquent and ready to talk and converse and help you, kind of guide you through the surfing matrix, call you into waves. Like it was like the complete opposite of what the surf culture was in the city. And I guess that was because like the waves we're surfing are shit, and these guys have just been blown out of fucking the craziest orbs. And like, so they're relaxed. They're just happy to connect and play in the ocean, take the stress and seriousness out of it. And I don't know how that feeds into the creative streak. Although when I think about surf films and bodyboarding films, like they give you a massive head start on culture, like the music, the kind of the music in particular, the editing, the cinematography, all of that stuff. You're watching this shit as like 10 years old on, and most kids when they're 10 are not getting exposed to culture that's been made by adults, and you're not watching that shit on repeat. Like, fuck, you would wear those videos out. So I
Mhm.
don't know, maybe that's where it comes from.
Yeah, it's also interesting, like when you kind of mentioned like a surfer in the city riding a beach break, and then a bodyboarder kind of in the middle of nowhere riding some slab out to sea. Also, that like the reasons behind why they do it. There was no industry in bodyboarding. Even when there was an industry, there wasn't really an industry. Like it was kind of a house of cards. Um, so you really had to want to do it, and you had all the nicknames and all the references of who you were. Like you were the bottom, and I don't know. It takes someone to really want to do it to do it, I guess. So there's no kind of groupies or scene or anything, and yeah, I don't know. There's some kind of correlation, I'm sure, between the creativeness and the drive that people have that bodyboarded back then or bodyboard now or whatever. Yeah, that's probably me just rambling a bit, but
No,
yeah,
it's what it is. It's a really good point that the lack of hierarchy or like the kind of just being degraded all the time, and maybe like the bodyboarders would recognize that in other people too, like who were, you know, just groms or starting out or less confident, and that was the connection. Like they were just there to connect with people who were kind and treating them well.
could very well be. Yeah, could very well be.
Man, did you travel much with bodyboarding? Like, did you hit yeah, where did you go with it?
Um, I went to like I went to Indo a ton, all through Indo and Hawaii a bit, like to the North Shore, and yeah, just around home, I guess. But nah, I was never like good enough to be one of the dudes, that's for sure. But I'll just like get barrels and that kind of stuff. So that Indo kind of suited that, and yeah, you know, being a young teen or 20 in my early 20s, just going to Bali and going to the surrounding islands and stuff. It was just easy and fun, and you'd hang with your mates and you know do that kind of stuff. So yeah, I didn't travel a whole lot specifically for bodyboarding. I'm just trying to think of the overlap between bodyboarding and photography because it changed down the line. But yeah, I still try and ride waves wherever I am. But yeah, not with bodyboarding as much back in the day, I feel.
Mm. Oh, it's interesting. One of the things I really love about bodyboarding is the way bodyboarders have kind of reimagined pipeline. Like the days that are bodyboarding days out there are so wild to watch. Like you just can't get into them on a stick. It's so warped and wedgy and fucked up. Like, can you talk to us a bit about that wave where it applies to bodyboarding? Because I mean, if you're a stand-up, you've probably never even seen it surfed on a day like that, if you unless you've
Uh,
been there, you know.
and they're doing it in the dark. They're paddling out where you can't even tell. You can just see avalanches out to sea, and like your bookshelf is shaking that night, and you're just like, the hell am I doing here? Uh, I think one person who's responsible for showing the world, the surfing world at large, how you can do stuff is Mike Stewart. He is, I don't know, Mr. Pipeline for all intents and purposes, and just the lines he draws, like the scoop, like you see in a surfing sense, you can imagine someone taking off a chopu backhand, how they kind of slide down on their bum before they stand upright. And like I reckon he invented that back in the day. And just showed how functional that 42-inch piece of foam could be in such wild, morphing, kinetic, breathing, backwashy waves. And yeah, pipeline is kind of the centerpiece uh, for that, especially on those rogue days where you're just getting these, I don't know, heaps of north in the swell, so you're getting like closeouts at gums, and guys like Jeff Hubbard, that's their launch ramp. Like he, Jeff Hubbard, he has been doing this for over 2 decades. And if it was anyone else in the world, we're just so desensitized by some of the sections he hits. Like if you've ever been to Backdoor and snorkeled there, it is like a flat, just death slab. And that's kind of his launch ramp. He lands in that, like on that flat table in huge waves. And he's done it day in, day out for over 20 seasons, and that's just commendable that he's still in one piece, and all his bones are still connected, because some of the shit that he's done is absolutely wild. And yeah, that's just one part of bodyboarding in Hawaii, I guess. Yeah, they're madmen, absolute madmen.
Madman. Yeah, when you're talking about Stewart kind of inventing that line, or at least like blazing that line for surfers, I'm reminded of Russ Bjerk's new film, which I just watched last night, and
Oh, sick.
yeah, like amazing film. And again, like, you know, these were slabs that were pioneered by bodyboarders that were in bodyboarding films, like, you know, almost 20 years before they popped up in surf films. And watching his line in when he's got the GoPro on, and just his ability to essentially find a rail in the most ledged out, cupped out sections. It's basically, you couldn't tell whether it was a stand up or a bodyboarder, because it's GoPro footage too. It's only when
Oh
you see
yeah,
the nose of his board that you're like, oh yeah, well, this is a stand up. But yeah, it's so reminiscent of bodyboarding.
he's so good, eh? He surfs well beyond his years, like, because I've known him for like a while, when he was like a child basically, and you just like, you kind of can't teach that stuff. That was purely instinctual, and like obviously he's just building and building and building, and he's, one of the best wave riders in the world. But as a kid, man, he just had it. He had the thing, like, like that thing that Clay Marzo has, how you kind of just, it's distinctively his, and he just has this connection. And I feel like, yeah, Russ is definitely on that kind of level of just unteachable talent.
Totally. I mean, he's the son of a big wave icon, and he grew up in a part of the world where, yeah, like, he was watching bodyboarders. He was watching them like hundreds of hours of boogers finding lines into these waves, and he's combined the two art forms like pretty much no one
Well,
else. Noah Dean probably being the other guy, and Nate Florence, but yeah, it is remarkable, the kind of cross pollination of those two art forms. And Russ, man, he's on another level. Just like his confidence
mhm.
when he commits to things, he's crazy. Like his self belief, the way he backs his ability, despite, sometimes not even being into waves. Like he's on top of the ledge, but he'll sail off it and back himself to disconnect and find a rail and make pits. It's fully surreal watching that film.
There's this like little session that happened when I was at Chopu once, and I think they may have labeled it like code orange or code blue, or some kind of code swell, to give you an idea of the size of it. And I remember the sun was almost setting. Maybe he was like, I want to say he was 17, or he was young, a boy. He hadn't really made the huge profile jump. He hadn't won like Cape Solander or any of that stuff yet, I feel. And I remember him trying to convince someone to please like let him tow in, because everyone had stopped towing. It was that one where um oh, what's her name? Kennedy. Anyway, everyone had stopped towing. It was wild. It was mutant. It was just these pure West kind of horseshoe closeouts, and he just got about 5 waves in a row. After speaking to Raymana, who like officially let him tow, because he was worried about his child wanting to take hold of the rope. And I just remember thinking, like, what is allowing this to happen? Like, what would make someone want to do this? And yeah, he was like, one other person who does this is Laurie Towner. It's not just hold the rope, let go, and just like have no idea of what's going on, but like actually surfing the wave, like actually choosing good lines and like burning off speed. And like Russ has got that down pat as well. And like I said, you can't have taught that. And that was his first time at Chopu. So like you can't practice for Chopu. Like you have to surf Chopu to surf Chopu.
Oh, I love that insight, man. Yeah, I was going to ask you, who are some of the surfers that you really enjoy working with back in the day when you were doing more of that stuff? Like who were the top guys, and what did you really notice about their approach?
Or do you know Dom Wills?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, yeah. He lives up near
Yeah,
me.
yeah, he's a ledge. I worked with him a lot. He was pretty fearless. Yeah, I feel like he kind of, wasn't he a filmer, and then kind of came out of the shadow and became a surfer or something.
I think so. Well, I think like he was sponsored by Hurley for a period, I believe, and You know, the Sunny Coast is stacks up to the South Coast in terms of the amount of slabs and stuff. So I think he
For
was
sure.
obviously always elite, but you know, probably a bit ahead of his time now that I think about it. Like he
Yeah.
was right on the pointy end of doing the wildest shit. Like he was dead mad. Like I remember him trying to surf Kaima Bommy and body
Yeah, I was there for
surfing
that. Yeah.
huge shippies. Yeah, well, you would have been shooting that. Well,
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
yeah. But what was going on?
Wild man.
What do you remember about that session?
I just I just thought like because I had seen people like Brendan Newton bodyboarder and Shane Ackerman, two like absolute maniacs in the water, and I never thought you could surf it. And I always thought like if you tow it, you'd come in behind it. But I remember my friend Joe towed him at it, and he would do a like a turn and just stand in these triple, quadruple lipped, not even a wave, man, just this like I don't know, ice sculpture that just detonated. And he wanted to do it more, and it just kind of, yeah, just so wild, eh? So wild. It's not a wave, that place. It's just the very, very deep water with a like an underwater volcano pinnacle that into a toothbrush shaped reef. So you just get these random side washes, random just direction changes while you're trying to navigate a tube. Yeah, it's a real interesting place. Actually, Kiama, I've never really seen another wave like it in all of my travels in the world. It's pretty unique, eh? And it's yeah, been a huge part of like the base of my work, I feel. But yeah, as far as surfers go, a guy I used to love working with is a guy called Eddie Blackwell,
Oh yeah,
aka the
Predator,
Predator.
iconic.
He's yeah, he's a wild man, uh, legend, very very good surfer, and I don't think I've ever seen him pull back on a wave in the 10+ years that I shot with him, and knowing him growing up and stuff, I don't can't recall a time I've ever seen him pull back. Even if there is no chance of making it, he will just pack it and pull in and just be just yeah, just be the Predator.
I got to get him on the pod. I've been trying, but yeah, he's it's
Good
probably
luck.
unlikely. But yeah, mate, what a surfer! It's so sick to see guys with that bigger body type. You know, stocky, powerful, just blowing the back out of it, but also manhandling thick cones. Like yeah, it's the ultimate kind of Aussie battler skill set. It's sick to see that
Fully
kind of surfing.
working class turns. It's like boom.
Fuck, mate. And yeah, the guy has enormous respect. Anywhere where he frequents, you know, you go to Indo and his mythology's there, South Coast, same. But
Yeah,
until you've seen it, you probably won't really understand.
he was always good to work with. Just a real character too. Yeah, just yeah. Even my mates now, like Dill Robbo. I don't know if you know who he is. He's a real good surfer. And his brother Joe. And there's a whole crew of guys. Hoppo. He used to like really have this place wired. And yeah, gee, it seems like I'm just talking about these old years. It's like feel nostalgic for it. It means I'm getting old. You know.
It was a golden age. Like I think people need to understand that there was waves that are like as good as backdoor pretty much, and there was a handful of guys that were surfing them without cameras really like for a long time because they were paranoid of it blowing out, which it did. And yeah, there's just no real record apart from this verbal like oral history of these guys
Fully.
doing what they did. So like yeah, they definitely deserve their props.
It's hard these days, eh? Like it's just I don't know. Social media, like it's a double-edged sword just in every way. Like, but mainly for like the way we use it and the way we ingest it and the way we kind of refer to it. It feels just so like my career. It's an essential part of like getting my work out to people. So like I use it but I really hate it. I've been talking with my wife for the last maybe 6 months of just getting someone just to manage it all, so I don't have to like clock in. And it's yeah, it's a lot of head noise involved with it. So
Big time. It's awful. It's
yeah,
like it's so bad for us, and you do need it for your business. Like we need it for ours, and mate, it's so detrimental. Like just simply what it can do to your sleep patterns if you look at it within an hour of going to bed, shit like that. You know, and no, it's not
yeah,
written on the fucking packet when you download this app that it will or your phone, that it will destroy your ability to sleep and have good mental health if you look at it within an hour of going to bed. Like that should be on the packet.
The thing is, when I bought the packet, it has evolved so much into something that I don't even recognize. So, like, it's just, yeah, just the minds behind it who created it. You know how it's like a drug, or it's addictive as that kind of thing, man. It's, I don't know, it's all consuming for a lot of people. Like, it's a currency. And yeah, and the comparisons that whatever you do and whoever you are, like, you're on there and questioning yourself because you're comparing your life to other people's highlight reels, and they're trying to impress people they don't even know. And it's just like, fuck, what is this tornado of fucking death? Maybe that's a bit extreme, but yeah,
Well,
maybe just yeah.
depends whose feed you're in. It tends to be a tornado of death on my feed. Also, I seem to subscribe to is like hectic fucking accounts that show war and poverty and misery. And yeah, it is a tornado of death. But I mean, fuck, dude, you're so right. Like, we've been fully skull zucked. And it's pretty hard to unpick yourself from it. He's just fucking got us by the back of the head, just absolutely zucking us.
Do you know what I've been getting in my feed lately, which I kind of love, but it's just getting too much? There's these like rubbish compactor things. They're like these spirals with like, they just suck in anything. Like, I've seen someone put a motorbike in it, and like it just crunches anything and spits it out into little pieces on a conveyor belt. And it's the algorithm's got me. Like, it's got me. And so I'm seeing a lot of that, and a lot of like people like breaking glass jars with different colored liquids in it. I don't know how. And I must have watched one once, and now it's all I see. So it could be worse. It could be the spiral of death, as mentioned before.
Yeah, there's plenty of that on there, mate. So talk to us about making this transition from bodyboarding into photography. Like, how did those skill sets overlap?
I think most, well, not most, maybe a lot of photographers, water photographers, were bodyboards. And it's because you already got most of the skills required. You got fins, you're really comfortable with fins because you need them for bodyboarding and swimming. You know the tube and the area, like, because you go on shockwaves and stuff, so you know where to be with your camera. And yeah, I don't know. The overlap is pretty huge for sure, especially now with like GoPros. Like, everyone can create that feeling of being in the tube. Um, yeah, but for me, like, photography kind of fell in my lap. I wasn't really trying to chase anything or do anything. Like, I hurt my knee in the mines underground, and bought a camera because I had to do some rehab, or I couldn't drive because it was my right knee. So I was just had all this time to kill, and bought a camera and just shot photos of my dog. And that was the start of the photography thing. And as my injury got better, I could start swimming again. And I asked the physio if I could go in the ocean. He said, yeah, just take it easy. And so I bought a housing and went out to some of the slabs and shot my mates. And that was the intro to photography. It was never something that I devised and planned and thought up and had like a roadmap to anything. It was just shooting photos of my mates. So
Do you remember the thrill of getting your first spread or cover? Do you remember what that photo was?
yeah, the first shot I ever got was of my friend Dill Robbo, and I just put the camera on auto. I had no idea what I was doing. Actually, it was sport mode. It was a dude running on the dial, so I knew that it was going to do stuff. And just real big day out this slab, and he just pulled in, did this peace sign, and yeah, I remember seeing that. It was only about a couple of weeks or months after I bought my camera, so it happened pretty quickly, and I just couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe that surfing life I had a shot in surfing life. And yeah, and so the photo editor at the time was Trent Mitchell, who's an amazing photographer. And he said, oh, you can't shoot on JPEG. If this was RAW, we would have given it more space in the magazine or whatever. So I was like, okay. So I just would YouTube, maybe it was in its infancy then. So I'd YouTube like how to shoot in RAW and all of that. And then I think maybe the next batch of submissions I gave, I got a cover shot with them, and I was just like, what the hell? Like, this is wild. Yeah, and then it kind of just grew, and I was working in the mines, and every available chance I was shooting, and just kept that balance for a couple of years.
So classic, man. And like, were there sessions that really stick out, or even waves that, like, certain locations that you were really drawn to, or you would like that you loved to shoot?
Yeah, it was definitely it was definitely the Verge in the beginning. That was just kind of my focus because I only had one lens and it was a fisheye, so I just had to get in the pit. Like, I had to just swim in the barrel because it's the only way it was going to work. And I loved it because I was in the water. I was with my mates. We were all hooting, and I was getting barreled with them. I wasn't traveling through it and coming out, but I was feeling the feels. So that was definitely my favorite place for years, eh? And then I started to inquire more about like how other lenses work, and then it took me to other places. That's when I went back to Hawaii as a photographer, I guess, and yeah, shot some just big, clean, beautiful afternoon pipeline with no one kind of on these waves, and I was just like, wow. But looking back on my early work, the person, the surfer, the bodyboarder, was always like silhouetted or just a small part of the photo where the wave kind of gave it scale, and maybe the wave was the star of the show. And I never picked up on that until yeah, a couple of years later when I entered this photo competition called Follow the Light in the States. And I think maybe Pete Tarras said that like the waves are the stars, and the surfers are just completing the picture kind of thing. And yeah, so I guess I was always drawn to just the waves themselves, and just they don't date, they don't age, they don't change sponsors or change haircuts, or like they are timeless, and stuff that I shot 15 years ago still feels relevant because it's the ocean, and it's just the infinite expanse of Pacific that just has all these different faces and feelings and moods. So yeah.
Oh, I love that, man. I love that. And what's the perspective like when you're, basically bobbing in the bows of a 6 to 10 foot barrel versus being on the other end, like on the piece of equipment, because you've been on both sides of that equation. Yeah, can you describe the experience, like what it looks like, or how that experience relates to actually surfing the wave?
I reckon you're in less danger generally, but you have so much more of your brain firing because what you're doing is like you're just making sure if you're surfing a wave, you're on the takeoff zone or you're in the channel, kind of, yeah, with a crazy barrel in between. But when you're shooting, like you could be anywhere along there, so you got to make sure you're on the edge of the reef. Your peripheral's all messed up because you're looking through a lens which might be like really zoomed in. So you've got to kind of almost just have just a big understanding of what's happening. And most of the time it works out, but often it doesn't. And you're on this thin line of like order and chaos, and you're getting fucking flipped around and just kind of smashed with this heavy brick of a thing in your hands, which is, just not that nice to get hit by. Yeah, so like just being around breaking waves is just one of the best. No matter what you're doing or what you're riding, or it's just one of the best places you can be. It's a feeling that I reckon we shouldn't even be feeling like it's like, I don't know, we're real lucky if we surf. If we're ocean going people, we're really, really lucky to experience that because 99% of the public has no idea what we're talking about.
Bully, man. I often think, like, what would God think if he was looking down on us, like watching some kid from Campbelltown, driving to the South Coast in his hatchback. He sits on the rocks, huffs a few dried plants through some plastic bottle, and then goes out and just like starts chucking himself into these orbs and getting spat out. Like, God would be like going, what are they doing? Like, I didn't invent them for this. How did they figure
And
this
it's
out, the smart cunts?
And it's not even, it's kind of pointless. Like we're not getting food. We're not like reproducing. We're just doing circles around a slab. It's like, what are you doing? It's purely play. But yeah, it's a bizarre concept, eh?
It's such a bizarre concept where we've tapped an oceanic realm that we're not amphibious. We're not built for that realm. But we've kind of cottoned on to what dolphins do. And there's no doubt that you get so charged up from whatever happens in the cone zone. It charges your crystals big time. It's undeniable.
100%, man. 100%.
Absolute magic. Yeah, so you mentioned working in the mines. Like, oh, actually, before I go to that, like talking about, yeah, the mishaps, like, fuck, man. Like, I remember working back in the early days working at Stab, and we get a lot of Scott Eichner's photos and
Oh yeah.
you know, another bodyboarder. And I remember just looking at these photos that would come across the desk and being like, how is he in that position? Like he was seemingly in the roof of like 6 to 8 foot slabs at backdoor. And I remember interviewing him and he was like, yeah, like every now and then you get it slightly wrong and you just go fucking dead first over the falls of your housing.
Mate.
Have you been done up or had any like stitch ups like that?
Yeah, for sure. But the level that he was on, he's something else. Him and Daniel Russo and Chris Van Lennep, they're like in 12-foot pipe barrels, like under the rail of the surfer in the tube. Like I'm not that guy. That's not me. But I couldn't even imagine the forces they've felt swimming under and just feeling that lip explode on their fins and just yeah, they're absolutely mental. Yeah, but I've had the common. If you shoot around the ocean long enough and you're in big waves, or whatever, you're gonna pay some kind of price. So um, the way I look at it, like I don't know if you can see my head there, but I've just been sort of
Oh
like
yeah.
5 stitches there,
Nice
like
little
a
zipper.
big claw here, like 20
Yep.
staples,
Fuck.
just getting bashed around. It's
Yeah.
part of it, but I like to look at it as like a bank account that I have all this savings of good memories and good times and good feelings with my friends and victorious barrels, and then like you just got to pay tax on that sometimes, and that's part of the thing that we do.
Oh, well said. Yeah, that's a good summary. And yeah, you talk about working in the mines, like that's something you've done pretty much your whole career until recently. And you know, obviously coal's kind of run its course. It was incredibly useful for humanity to get us to a certain point, and now we've got to transition off it. But at the same time, like coal miners in my mind have been on the forefront of many amazing crusades for workers' rights, for kind of just dignity for working class and poor people. So there's plenty of good that's come from that culture and that industry. But what's it like when you're down there in the shaft, man? Like, talk us through fucking working as a coal miner for a gig. It seems like a job from 100 years ago, and it kind of is.
It is, yeah, it is. A lot's changed in 100 years, but a lot hasn't. Mind you, like I haven't done it for it must be 10 years or something now. And I did it for about 10 years. So, but like you go into a hole and you go a kilometer down, and then you go 30 kilometers through a series of tunnels, and you work and you do just heavy manual work. The machines do a lot of the stuff for you, but they're always breaking down, and they can't get in certain spots, so you've got to get in these spots. And I don't know, it's pretty gnarly, eh? It's when you think about it, you know how we're talking about surfing, how like you just see this weird pattern of like enjoyment. This is like you think like you imagine a cross cut like a layer, and you're just this little tiny little ant with all of this earth above you, and that would kind of spin me out sometimes. Um, yeah, dark, dusty, dangerous, and just real dirty. You just constantly just breathing in dust and dirt, and I don't miss it, that's for sure. And I've got heaps of mates still there, obviously, and I'd probably be still there if this happy accident didn't happen, you know. So yeah, most of the guys I surf with are all shift workers in the mines and whatnot. So yeah, it's still happening, and it is in its on the timeline of it. It's definitely in the last stages of the technology, and how we transition and stuff is pretty apparent now. So
Mm, mm. Oh, yeah, that's such an interesting comparison with ants. I was just tripping on that. Like, it is so weird. We're such a strange species because we're not that much bigger than ants when you kind of zoom out and look at the planet. And there we are, like carving out this little fucking black bit of crust or dust that powers our entire planet and everything, and allows us to then, like, I mean, from a surface point of view, we get this little bit of crust, and it kind of gets pumped into various forms of technology and travel, and we use that dust to power us to go over to these slabs and charge up in them. And yeah, it's mate, I don't know what I'm getting at there, but fuck the idea of like all these little ants a kilometer, 30 kilometers fucking under the earth, toiling away to power our society is not something I've really thought about a whole lot. But when you put it like that, yeah, I mean,
do we have meaning? What's the meaning of all this? Why are we riding sleds? Why are we going in tunnels and digging coal out? What are we here for?
exactly. Well, I think the Buddhists say that we all want the same things out of life, which is essentially like everyone wants to feel happy and like happy and joy kind of, I think. So it's like how best to achieve those ends. I mean, surfing can be used as a vehicle to achieve that. Coal mining in an indirect way, like
Yeah,
it does give us the energy
funds.
the energy and the funds to supply our adventures. But I mean, the Buddhists also say that, like, rather than going 30 k's underground to carve shit out, may as well just go there and meditate, like sit down there and in a
Yeah,
robe and drink some water and just focus on your breath, and you'll kind of not need any of the above listed. But fuck that, like, I still want to get pitted occasionally.
it's funny. Like it's I've been like wondering like what to do and how to like just find fulfillment because like I like the photography business. It just ticks over. I don't have to really do much. It affords my wife and I like a great lifestyle and whatever. But there's one thing she always said to me. It was like, "Oh, you need structure and accountability." And I was like, oh, I just didn't really understand that because like it's just like yeah, whatever. I'm just gonna go and shoot photos and hang with my mates and drink coffee. But the last 2 years I've been lifeguarding and I'm responsible to someone. Like I have to be somewhere where I say I'm going to be, and so I'm accountable and I have a roster and I'm servicing like I'm a public servant for my local community and it's
Sick.
like oh this is like I get it. This is like a little insight to like so anyway. I think that's a bit of a tangent, but I feel like that is a step towards just other incorporating other things into such a selfish existence.
Totally, man. Like they say, structure is freedom, and it's so true. And
Wow.
when you lose your purpose in life, like even if that purpose is seemingly like torturous, like purpose means that like you have to do it whether you want to or not. You got to do this thing, and that purpose is powerful. Having no purpose is fucking awful. Like I don't begrudge people, when you succeed a lot of the time, you can end up losing the purpose and drive because you don't have to go out and do the thing anymore. You're
Mate,
comfortable.
I fully get it, eh? Like I don't even feel like a photographer most of the time. I feel so disconnected from the stuff I've done and the things that I've achieved. Like it's not even it's not even me. Like I don't know. I just feel, yeah, like I'm just bouncing around with no real direction. And I know that this comes and goes. It used to freak me out. Like because I go crazy on shooting photos. I'll shoot photos every single day for 3 months, man. Like I'll be there at sunrise, I'll be there at sunset, just with this drive, this creativity. And then like I don't even look at my camera, don't even pick it up, don't touch it. And for months as well. And then I'll go through an editing phase where like I don't necessarily I'm not there shooting every day, but I get the product that I have shot in the past and I can go and I'm in the right headspace to just dive into it and play around and just enjoy it. And yeah, it's a weird thing trying to be self propelling and creative and motivated all the time. And I feel like, yeah, just doing, lifeguarding, and I actually just got accepted in the local fireys as well. So that I'm
Oh,
looking
true.
forward to
Oh,
that.
that's massive.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Congrats, man. That's mental.
Yeah. So like I said, the photo stuff always ticks over and I love it. And it's like it's me, like it's actually I'm woven into these photos, and it, stepping back from it is so relieving sometimes, and almost like putting a different like hat on necessarily, like kind of thing, like just with the lifeguarding and the fireys and stuff. It's like, oh, I can be these other things too. I don't have to just be this thing that ends up I can't kind of escape from. So anyway, I think I am rambling about it, but this is life, man. You just learn
Yeah,
and go through seasons and try and just have more experience and give back and whatever else.
totally. Yeah. I mean, yeah, just that search for meaning. I think that isn't that a book by that Solzhenitsyn dude, like the Man's Search for Meaning. I think it's like, yeah, an iconic book, but it seems to be that anything that really engrosses you, anything that like really sucks your attention in and keeps you locked into the present moment, like everyone has to find what that thing is in life. Without that thing, you're lost. You start to ruminate, and ruminating's
Totally.
a cancer. Like, you think like Andrew Huberman was saying the other day, like the moment you're not in the present moment, the moment you're thinking of in the future or the past, you're kind of losing. Like, so yeah, like water photography in particular, like it's similar to big wave surfing. I was just chatting to Jughead yesterday, and he had a very similar kind of upbringing to you, like poor, like single mum essentially, and surfing big waves and slabs really like locked him into the present moment, because you got no
Fully.
choice. If you don't pay
Fully.
attention, you get fucking lit up. So that was like his escape, and it doesn't have to be something as extreme as that though. It can be finger painting, like whatever. But
Hmm.
yeah, it is that kind of man's search for meaning. It's a good question, man. Like, talk to us. Like before we end this, I definitely have to get into the art side of things, but mental health, man. Like, talk to us about your relationship with mental health and finding meaning. I mean, I know that you had a really difficult start to life. Like your old man took his own life when you were like a kid, like 8 years or 10 years old or something. So, like, what kind of an imprint did that leave on you? And what has your relationship been to mental health over the ensuing years?
Hmm. Well, as a 41-year-old, like I look back at that time now and it just feels kind of surreal. My mum did the very best she could with the tools and the resources that she had. Um, but yeah, like that stuff and like heaps of other stuff growing up, like that will catch up with you. And so yeah, I started seeing a psychologist probably more ages ago now. Probably just when my photo work kind of took off, I started seeing her to help navigate just the shit that was happening, and it kind of she was more her practice kind of focuses on the inner child and like and it was real helpful. And I seen her sometimes really intensively, sometimes a few times a week, and then sometimes once every 2 months, just uh, however I was feeling and whatever I needed. So she was like huge and just helped me, like because we're just all of us are walking around with this closed room on top of our shoulders with a ball just banging around, and we're but sitting with someone who is independent, trained, and able to assist you navigate, getting your thoughts out and hearing another opinion on them. It's just so critical to understanding ourselves and dropping our own narrative. Like, because I would have these really unhealthy kind of uh, patterns, or I would just, yeah, like almost like this kind of passenger that's with you that's narrating this stuff, and it's just like you're not kind of good enough, and just, whatever. We all have these things, but being able to learn about that and replace it with like a lot more kind, um, a lot more of a kind voice. And one of the best things I learned for my own mental health was imagining a friend, not like a partner or a family member, but just like a really good friend, and imagine them having these problems and what you would say to them. And it's like it just flipped the script on myself, like saying, having this narration of like whatever the problem is, just this constant loop of I don't know, patterns of thoughts or whatever, but directing that to your mate, you would never talk to him like that. You would never say these things that you're not good enough, or like the whatever. I hope I'm making sense here, because this
Absolutely.
is just spilling out. Um, that that positional change really helped. Yeah, just being more kind in my own head. Um, yeah, so like working with her, I was taking medication as well for a couple of years, which I stopped about maybe 5 years ago. Just a combination, exercise, food, just getting in good patterns, and not relying on motivation, but relying on like discipline,
Mm,
because your motivation comes and goes so quickly, and you
boy.
don't want to get out of bed some days. So, but just showing up and doing the work, it's pretty huge. And you never arrive. You never you never just get to this place where, I mean, most people don't. I'm sure people do just complete oneness and being with all things, but you never get anywhere. It's not until you look back and then you go, shit, I've come through some shit, and that, yeah, when you stop and reflect, and
Oh,
yeah.
that's priceless, man. That is such salient advice, and I don't think anyone does arrive. I've never heard of people arriving. Like I've never read that in any books. Like it is a daily practice, and I love what you said about discipline instead of motivation, and that kind of comes back to that structure gives you freedom, because when there's people depending on you, whether it's a football team or a men's group or like or a lifeguarding gig or a fireman gig, like you have to be there at a certain time. Like, so it forces discipline. But when you don't have that structure, then yeah, you're just relying on yourself, on your own motivation. That's almost like an unwinnable battle. Like, because like you said, motivation, it has like, peaks and troughs.
Fully. Yeah, fully, man.
Man,
Yeah,
talk to us about the art side of things. Like I said, it's been surreal to watch where your work has gone. It's gone across the world. It's won I don't know how many awards, and there's also like no real way I could do any justice to your water photography with words. Like it's not something that lends itself in my vocabulary. Like it's fully in that realm of the sublime, where it can only really be understood through seeing it. But maybe you can explain a bit about what it is you actually do.
I sit in the ocean and wait. That's what I do. I kind of look at a weather map and the tide and the position of the sun, and I make a choice on what lens to use, and I wait. I just wait for a moment to present itself, and I try not to force a preconceived idea into what I want to come away with. I just, yeah, just sit and wait, and a lot of the times, historically, good things have happened and can happen in that little moment. Um, I don't know. I've heard my work referred to as heaps of different things. But for me, like, I like to try and freeze a moment, usually a moment before a moment, like a feeling of anticipation of, it can be so simple. It can just be a triangle of water. And to say that is literally what it is. But I feel like when you see it, it maybe conveys a bit more. yeah, then I can do. But yeah, I just take photos of waves, mate. I don't know. Yeah, it's
it's
just
man, what it is, like listening to you talk about it, it's kind of making more sense in my mind. Like you're capturing the physical manifestation of energy, and
totally.
like it somehow passes into you when you're looking at that, because it's familiar enough. Like it looks kind of like from another planet, but you've seen stuff like it. Like, you know, if you've ever looked at a wave or the ocean, like you can relate to it. But yeah, like you're creating these like explosions of molecules and hydrogen in particular shapes, this kind of wonder of this beautiful planet that we're on. And there's something in that. I don't know. Like, again, we're a fucking weird species. The fact that ants have realized that they can capture these moments of nature and energy coalescing around a rock slab is trippy. Like, we shouldn't really be able to do that.
I agree. At moments you would miss, you definitely miss them, and to freeze them is like I feel honored to be able to do it. And most people that buy my work, most of my clients, most of my customers, they're landlocked. They're in the middle of America. They're in Germany. They're like in, all around the world. But most of them are landlocked, which is bizarre because what are they getting out of it? At least as a surfer, oh, I can imagine that because I've paddled over a wave and looked at something like that before. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
Oh,
The
that's
more I,
rad. That makes it
yeah,
even
like,
better. The fact that it's landlocked people, like it makes more sense to me. Yeah, because for exactly what you just said, like they're connecting with energy. They get a buzz, like a buzz from that, a connection to that energy that's so foreign to them. They can't connect with that like we can.
mm, yeah, it's bizarre, eh? It's real bizarre. It's, I can find like beauty in a 1 inch ripple or a 20-foot slab, and they behave the same way. It's real cool to watch and compare photos that are like so similar, but just the scale is just so different. Um, yeah, it's weird. It's real weird. Like, and it just grows in my understanding and what I think I know, and it's just all nothing because I just try and reset every time and try not to force it and just see what comes to me. I'm like kind of like fishing or something, you know?
Yeah, and one thing all these things have in common, whether it's fishing, whether it's shooting surfers or bodyboarders at slabs, or chasing the kind of conditions you're chasing, like it all comes back to this deep understanding of weather, energy, nature, like bottom contours, like. And I guess it's interesting, you know, bodyboarders dominate the water photography and film game, and you were a part of that. And now you've like taken that skill set, it seems to me, and kind of applied it to just a different but equally valid aspect of the aquatic environment. Like you're no longer shooting surfers in slabs. You're shooting these like bizarre explosions of energy that create these wild shapes, but it's the same thing.
Yeah, yeah, it's just a different way of looking at it, eh? The less the more I strip away, the more is shown. The more I simplify things, the more detail I see. Uh, I'm still not aware of exactly what's going on, to be honest. But it's actually talking with you now. It's got me real excited to create, and I haven't felt that for several months. So it's pretty cool. Like it's like I'm kind of tapping back into this thing or these old feelings that I know I've just been so detached from. I feel like they're kind of welling up again. So yeah, that's real cool, man. Thank you.
Sick, man. No, thank you. I got the same feeling when you're talking about psychologists and that independent kind of. Yeah, I'm going to call one up as soon as this interview ends. So it goes both ways, brother.
Yeah, no, that's awesome, man.
And mate, before I leave you, like one of the rad things that you're a part of is this kind of body surfing underground, and like just bro, like one of the funniest, best surf films on the internet that I recommend everyone watch is called Body Surfing, the movie. You know
How
this
good is
film?
that? How good's the soundtrack of that as
Oh
well?
my God. Are they making those songs themselves? I feel like
I
they,
think so, man.
some of them, eh?
I reckon that's so good. I just
Mate,
put that on in the background sometimes.
it's the fucking best piss take you've ever seen. But it's not, it's like the surfing, the vision is so valid. These guys are getting so tubed and taking the piss at the same time. It's like the epitome of that dolphin mindset. Like these guys have cracked it, and I
Yeah.
think they're just packing like huge closeouts at like it looks like Surfers Paradise and shit. You know,
Oh
just
yeah, 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 yeah.
fucking the classical like straight hand body womp. But yeah, talk to us about this art form and what you get out of that.
How's you know what's funny? Because I have spoken to you about this in the past. We did an interview a couple of years ago now, and I was smoking so much weed at the time. And when I reread the interview that we did, I think maybe for Stab about body surfing, and I was just like, whoa, I kind of didn't recognize the words that were coming out of my mouth at the time. But I think, yeah, I was either whacked that day or, and for a considerable amount of time before and after. But my feelings still feel the same. I'm just a bit more grounded on the earth now. Um,
Oh,
it's
bro, don't be
the,
so hard on yourself. I thought the opposite. Like when you were talking about it, it was as though like you were the living embodiment of what you were talking about, which is that, you know, when you body surf, you're riding a storm created, you know, swell created by a storm thousands of kilometers away with no board and nothing, and all that energy just passes straight into you. There's no nothing in between you and that energy, and that
yeah,
energy. When I was talking to you, I'm like, it's in it. Like I can see
yeah,
that. Like he's proof of concept precisely, and yeah, I was like, it got me psyched on body surfing, because for that very reason, like that's essentially what we're trying to do in the ocean is just charge up, like let that energy pass
fully.
through to us. Like the famous quote from Mark Healy, talking about that thundercloud swell, you know, like that energy never dissipates. It lives on inside of the person who it transfers into, and surfing
Well,
is a great way to absorb that energy.
that's what Stoke is. Stoke is taking that energy out of the ocean and walking around with it afterwards. Yeah. But like I guess referring back to that interview, like I get like fully bullied like online and stuff, and it's real bizarre. So I have just pulled back from like just kind of I don't know, just saying how I truly feel about a lot of things, which is kind of real shit. But I think I'm over that. I think I've progressed through that now. But that was at a time where it was kind of happening a fair bit. So
Oh, that's fucked.
yeah, but it is. It's your skin. Your skin is the barrier between the wave and the energy, man. I body surf almost every single day. Like that is the connection I have. Like surfing comes and goes with how I feel and how the waves are. So does bodyboarding, so does photography. But body surfing is never fails. Whether it's 1 foot, it's always overhead. Like it is the key for my ocean connectiveness. Body surfing. It's number one for me. If I had to just ride waves, if I was on an island, all I would ask for is swim pins and I would just body surf. That would be me for sure. The best way to enjoy the waves.
So sick, man. And you've also packed, like, I think people would be surprised if they go and have a look on your Instagram, like you've packed some psycho slabs down at, like around Shell Harbour and elsewhere. But like I don't think, like, I mean, people have probably seen Mark Cunningham at Pipeline and Mike Stewart at Pipeline getting really barreled, or like, you know, these mental kind of foam ball rides. But I don't know if people have probably seen what can be done on some of these like really iconic Australian slabs. Yeah, like, I mean, what happened? Like, the photo looks so crazy. It looks like you're in incredible peril. But I mean, same with bodyboarding. I guess you can dip out and kind of punch through the back fairly safely. I don't know. Like, what's going on in those situations?
I reckon like you just don't want one that's like too wally. If it looks kind of like it's got more of a suck back, they're the ones. And gee, it's a good feeling. But yeah, you're on a rock shelf and you can kind of it's sweet getting caught inside and all that, obviously, but when you are in the tube, like it's kind of hard to duck out a lot of the times. Yeah, it's like Cape Solander. Have you seen the guys that do that? And I think the original guys that surfed there were
Hiker's
body
hole.
surfers. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That's so good.
Wait,
People often don't know that like Oki used to sit on the rocks just watching body surfers pack slabs out there, and they believed it was unsurfable for years.
and that's zero social media. That's zero like chest beating, like alpha vibes. Like, yeah, it's so good. You know what? Even when it's really small, I like to just go straight on a whitewash and just see how far, and just you feel the change in like the sandbank drops off, so you feel the waves slow and you have to get more like streamlined until you reach the next bank. I don't know. It's it's a full-on puzzle, and it's so good in all conditions, and just such a good way to reset and get your heart rate up and tap into the ocean. It's the best. It's the very best. And we get paid to train as lifeguards, so like yeah, getting to do it more than ever, which is real good.
Oh, that's magic, man, and that's a good place to leave it. Thank you so much for your time, Ray, and yeah, man, looks like you're on a good wicket at the moment. You've collected your thoughts, and yeah, it seems like you got the structure, and yeah, everything's going well.
It's a process, isn't it? And just try and keep adding the things that you know will benefit you, eh? And just pushing through when life's not going so good for whatever reason. And I think yeah, we're all in this together, this life thing, and we're all incredibly lucky to be here. So yeah, real good chatting with you, mate. And thanks for stoking me up to shoot photos again. I'm really amped.
Oh, so stoked to hear that, bro. Thank you so much. Speak to you soon.
Thanks, Ledge. Bye.
See you, brother.